Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today is our foundation step. In any 12-step program, it's something that I teach here. It's something that I also do in my own recovery and in my own sobriety. My sobriety date is January 25th, 1989. I've been sober for 31 years, and I've been working in the industry of substance abuse and addiction for 31 years, just about. My first sponsor had opened up a treatment center when I was early on in sobriety, and I worked for him as a driver. So what we're going to be discussing today is step one. And step one is we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. And one of the things that we like to discuss here, so this is for somebody who's a newcomer or somebody who's been in recovery for a very long time, is that admission of powerlessness. And for me, one of the things that I keep teaching here, at least in my recovery and in the clients that come here, is that admission is something that we need to admit to, that we need to share with somebody, that we need to admit this to someone or somebody. And one of the and this admission isn't something that we do one time, two times, three times. It's something that we have to do on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Is this admission that I am powerless over alcohol or any other thing that you want to be powerless over, and to surrender or to yield to. And these are some of the things that we try to teach here, and that I try to teach in the people that I work with, also in my sobriety and with the men that I sponsor, and in understanding how foundational this step is in us being able to take on many other things that are going to come our way. Alcoholism and or drug addiction is the basics. It is the easiest thing to do, is to quit drinking and using. It might not seem that way when you come into the program, but after a couple of weeks or a month and you start feeling better and you no longer have that pull to go and drink and use drugs, now there's another thing that kicks in. It's called defects of character. It's called instincts, going crazy in sobriety, in recovery. And that becomes a thing that we also need to practice, the admission of powerlessness and the unmanageability of our thinking and the unmanageability of our behaviors, not just around alcohol and drugs, but around our thinking and also our behaviors. Because we didn't just pick up the drink and the drug. There were a lot of situations and circumstances that got us to that point where we crossed the line over to alcoholism and or drug addiction, or any other addiction for that matter. That excessive thinking and compulsive behavior about trying to make ourselves feel good or ignore something or to not remember something, whatever it might be. So when we admit powerlessness and that our lives have become unmanageable, that process of doing that is something that we have to do on a daily basis. Because what that does is that brings me back down to earth. That brings me into a state of humbleness, a state of humility on a regular basis. Because alcohol and drugs is going to be the least of your problems as you stay sober. There's been many people in my sobriety that I've seen that have stayed sober for a very long time, miserable as hell. Because what's taken over is, and what tends to take over after we stop drinking and using, is our instincts. Is our God-given instincts that have gone and become warped. And they've become obsessive. And they've become what we call defects of character. And that's what we end up having to deal with or work with as we stay in recovery, if we're planning on staying in recovery from alcoholism or drug addiction, is then we need to start getting into dealing with some of the insanity, or what I like to call the pain body, or psychological time of our past or of the future. We have to use all the resources that are within a 12-step program and get into the essence and get into all of those resources. Yeah. One of the things that I push here with us in regards to the basics of the program is meetings. If you're working 3 to 5 meetings a week, if you're not working 5 to 7 meetings a week, getting into service, some type of service, cleanup, setup, coffee, secretary, sweeping, reading, whatever it might be, get yourself into service. And then get a sponsor who has at least 5 years of sobriety, who's at least worked the steps a few times, who has at least worked the traditions at least once or twice, so that they have a well-rounded view and experience in regards to understanding what the 12-step program is about, and that they can lead you in the right direction. But if you haven't admitted powerlessness and unmanageability, you're not going to want to do any of these things. And then with that sponsor would then start working the steps, start working the traditions with you, and then start getting into prayer and meditation. Those are the 5 things that we recommend here with us and with me in my own recovery. Those are the 5 basics. I call them the basics. They're the foundational basics that we need to be plugged into if we're planning on sticking around, if we're planning on getting any better in our lives. It's something that we need to implement in our lives. So this is just the beginning of me covering the topic of step 1 and just the heading of we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, over drugs, over sex, over eating, over sloth. Pick any of the 7 God-given instincts and we can be obsessive and we can be alcoholic. And that our lives can become unmanageable as a result of that. And we can get into all kinds of different things around this, and I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg with this. And I just wanted to just start doing that and start talking about that. And then I'll start getting into the reading and start digging into each of the paragraphs as we move along. But I just wanted to share that with you. And that's my view just on that. And there's many more things that we can talk about. So if you have comments or any questions or whatever you might have, share them with me and I'll be glad to address them or respond to them. And I hope you guys are having a great day. I'll talk to you guys later. Mahalo.